Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I am making a new sculpture template. Can you guess what it is from the parts? So I'm just going to go ahead and start cutting this out. It's not one I've built before, so it may be that the legs aren't quite long enough or the body's not quite right shape. This is all trial and error. But these are the parts that will be on the template. They just might be a slightly different size. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. My clay slab is quite thin, it's about 2 millimeters thick. And I'm just going to cut round all these parts, and I've got plastic behind so the clay doesn't stick to the board. So let's jump on to the next part. Now I'm going to need 2 of these, and I'm just going to use the same template twice. So what I'm going to do is mark out lightly the darts by tracing through the surface of the clay, and then I'm going to use this template again on the other side. So let's jump onto that. And there we are. So I've now got 2 halves, and you can see I've traced through the design onto the surface of the clay. So now I'm going to go ahead and do 2 of these. Let's jump to that part. And there we are. So now I've got 2 of each, and now it's time to do the legs. Let's jump onto that. So I've removed the excess clay and I've popped my template parts to one side. Now we're going to work on the legs. Now there's 2 options for this. You can either cut them out as I've done with the rest of the template, or for the legs you can roll a sausage of clay and then use the template to position the clay and leave them to one side to firm up. So that's your other option. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do it by cutting out the legs in the template. As they are so thin, you have to have a decent gap between them if you're cutting them out on a slab. So I'm going to do that first one there and support the template as you go along. Leave a slight gap so that you're not pushing the template as you go. Take your time and then cut round like that. So that's one side, and now I'm going to cut the other. There we are. I'm going to mark out those lines just by imprinting as we've done before, and that's one. So I'm just going to cut that across there, and as this is on plastic it's easy to remove the excess clay. Move that across there. Okay, so now I'm going to do the second one. You could flip it over if you wanted to do the opposite leg, but as I know the pattern, I'm going to use the same side and flip the clay over instead. So as I said, leave a gap. I'm going to remove the leg that I've just cut. I'm going to do that by lifting up the slab and carefully removing. It should remove quite easily now. There you go. So that's one leg, and put that to one side. And now I'm going to do the other. Okay, then I've got my next leg. I'm going to pop there. Press down onto the surface of the clay so it sticks a little bit. I'm going to do the inside first. Remove. Cut down there. Take the excess away. I'm going to go ahead and do the other leg now, and let's jump to that part. And there we are, that's all our legs. Pop those on some plastic and pop them to one side while we work on the body. Okay, let's jump on to the next part. I've popped the legs to one side as I said, and now I'm going to cut out the darts. This one, 2. I'm going to go ahead and do all of those on all the pieces. So let's jump onto that. Cut out all the darts. So now I'm going to use my serrated kidney to add some thick slip and join those darts together. So let's jump onto that. So I'm going to show you how to do the larger one, and just score on the inside of each dart. I'm using my serrated kidney. Add some very thick slip to the inside where you've scored. Make sure that the line is on the outside, and then draw those 2 darts together. Give it a wiggle and then do that to each one. So let's jump onto that. There you are, so that's one, and now I'm going to show you how to do the smallest one. Let's jump onto that. Make sure the line is on the outside, turn it over, start bringing it round, score the inside of each dart, add thick slip and draw those two together. Give it a little wiggle. Let's jump ahead to the rest. So now I'm going to do the other two exactly the same. Let's jump ahead to that. Once the clay slip has all firmed up, you can then use your sculpture tool just to blend in those joins. So let's jump onto that. So let's now score round the edge on the inside on all those parts. Now I'm going to add thick slip. Now I've scored, and I'm going to join the two halves together on each size. So let's jump to that. Now let's try these up against one another and then line up the walls and just push the edges together. Let's do the little one. And there we are. So let's work on the legs. Leave these to one side to firm up. So grab each leg and use a wet sponge or a finger and take off the edges so it rounds it out. And you should be left with something like that. Turn it over and do the other side and lightly put in the marks where the joins are for the leg joints. And that's how I do my slab legs. And then once you're happy with them, make sure they're in the right position by using the template to reposition them if need be, and then leave them to one side to firm up. Let's jump on to the next part. And there we are. So now it's time to assemble it all, put it all together. Let's jump onto that. Now before we assemble it, I forgot to say, make sure you blend in that join where we join the two halves together using your sculpture tool until it's all nicely blended in. Obviously you have to wait for that clay slip to firm up so it doesn't transfer onto your finger before you can do this. There you go, it gives you an idea. Like so. So do that to both parts. Let's jump onto that. And there we are. So I've blended in that join. Now I'm going to smooth it out, ready to assemble. And the same for this little part. Let's jump onto that. So as you can see, they're nice and smooth now. And what I've done is I've flattened the bottom on one side, having the point at the top, just by tapping it on the surface until I'm happy with that shape. And then with the head, I've done the same. Flatten the bottom first, and then flatten the top where I'm going to attach the abdomen. Just by tapping it until I'm happy, and then you can see that's where it'll attach. So I'm going to score and slip those two pieces together, and let's jump onto that. And at this point it'd be a really good idea to add a sculpture reference to the video, which I forgot to do. So I'm going to add that picture now so that you can have a look at that before you assemble the spider. Okay, so let's jump onto that. I've scored those two areas, and now I'm going to add some thick slip on both sides, there and there, and then slip them together. Make sure you add plenty so that the join's really strong. Let's jump onto that. And there we are. So I've added the thick slip, and now I'm just going to apply. Give it a wiggle, and this is where those lines come into play. So if you make sure you line up those lines, that one and that one, then you'll know it's in the right position. Now you may need to support the abdomen while that clay slip firms up. So let's jump onto that. And there we are. So I've added some slip to the bottom, positioned the legs on the board, and then laid the abdomen on top. And I've supported the back of the abdomen there with a little bit of dry clay. And then I've propped up each leg with a very thin piece of dry clay, but you could use whatever you've got. A bit of cardboard will do. That's just what I had to hand, just so that the legs aren't actually touching the surface. And that way it will be less likely to break off. This is a wall-mounted spider, so it's pretty safe from prying hands once it's been fired and glazed and mounted on the wall. So there we go, a spider. Just got to add the eyes, and that's it. That's all I'm going to add to this one.